Oh no, not budgets. Yep, budgets. You know, there's so much out there about budgets. I can live on 500 American dollars a month. I only need $3,000 American a month. I don't know how people can live on only $1,000 a month. Well, it's quite simple. Everybody can. It's up to you. You know, I can give you a budget. I can give you an estimate. I can give you an expenses. I can even show you our spreadsheet. When I'm talking about our, I'm talking about those that live in ivory towers, of course. You know, the ones with no hair. He doesn't worry about money, nor should you. After all, it's only a budget. What is a budget? A budget is something that you put in your mind as an approximate cost of maybe living somewhere. There's two things really that need to be discussed. One is, where do you want to live? How do you want to live? In what do you want to live? The second one is, what do you want to eat? Where do you want to eat? How do you want to eat? The rest is by the wayside. Sure, some of you will complain about internet costs. Some will say, oh, but in Thailand it's half the price and much faster. Or go and live in Thailand. The thing is, the internet's fine here in the Philippines if you just want an internet connection. If you want to somehow maybe change your opinion of what you should be experiencing for your internet provider. Let's just try and see why that went a little bit dark then. Maybe there's an omen there. Oh no, not the devil. No, the devil's in the detail. You know, internet for me has always been around 1,500 pesos a month. PLDT, Converge, Mountain, something or other. They're all pretty much the same, and they provide you with a reasonable good service. That does, of course, have a problem when some of the spaghetti hanging across the roads on small barangay roads gets severed by an oversized truck who's not really thinking about your service provider providing that service. So for a few days you may not have any connection at all. But for 99 pesos, you can get a pretty good service on your telephone. So you're not without connection, that's for sure. Now, of course, the other thing is water. I'm not talking about the water that's supplied to a house. No matter where you live, it's maybe 220, maybe 250, maybe 350 per month. That's the water supply from the municipality. It's not filtered, it's just simple water. I believe it's got some kind of chemical in it to make sure that it's safe to have around the place. But I wouldn't be drinking it for a start. I know that some of you have, and no side effects, but some got some deli belly afterwards. So getting your water delivered to your house can be anything from 25 to 35 maybe for a 5-gallon drum of water. That's filtered water, one that you can drink. I tend to drink water in a bottle that's come from a bottling plant, one similar to that but not Coke, and they're about 15 pesos for that size. But the other things, of course, are internet, water. What else do we have? Well, the other thing, of course, is food. steak, chops, ribs, chicken, all have a fixed price, and no matter where you are in the country. It depends on where you're living. If you're out in the countryside, you're going to find it's probably a little bit fresher. It's going to be maybe a little bit cheaper than in the city, but don't count on it, because businesses have to survive, and the base price is dependent upon the cost to the farmer of the feed that he feeds the stock with. And that's definitely gone up in price. You only have to ask pig farmers whether the cost of hog food has risen, and it surely has. But pork, beef, fish, chicken, all of those are pretty stable in terms of price. They might go up 10, 15 pesos per kilo, but everything is sold by the kilo. You don't tend to buy 2 chicken breasts. You can, of course, buy 2 chicken breasts, but at the cost, it's still the same as if you bought the whole bird. As far as beef, usually a little bit more expensive than that of pork. Pork is around $3.40, $3.60, depending on where you buy it. In a supermarket, it could be even between the two prices, depending on how they've managed to acquire it. Beef, of course, offers you things like T-bone, sirloin, but again, not quite your marble beef that you can get back home. Grain-fed Angus beef. Can buy it here. S&R is a good example, and when you buy maybe 4 or 5 or maybe 6-piece pack, it is cost effective, because depending on how you eat it, you'll find that the imported one, often from Australia or New Zealand, is a yummy steak. They've got the top quality stuff. They've also got American T-bone steak for around 3,000 pesos for one great big chunk. Not what I would be running out to buy, but of course, if it's your thing and you want one once a month or maybe every day, it's going to cost you. But S&R do have some pretty good deals. But also, like all so-called Costco, S&R, all those kinds of bulk places, there's a limited variety of things that are available. And yes, they are bulk packs. Hence, if you divide the weight into the individual costs of maybe the same product in your local supermarket, you will find a slight variation downwards. But most people will go and buy their groceries in a market sari store, a commercial merchandise store. And some will go to the local supermarket. Some supermarkets have chains and they're cheaper. If you go to SM supermarket or Robinson's Mall, you'll find that supermarkets can be quite expensive. But the average person buying his groceries, his toothpaste maybe, his washing powder, his underarm deodorant, all those things are available in a supermarket. And remember, the smaller stores buy them from the supermarket. Now, of course, the average person doesn't necessarily go to the supermarket, but you can. So you can avail yourself with bulk packs of body wash and shampoo, whereas the locals tend to buy them in small sachets, just one serve at a time. Again, it's up to you how you buy them. The thing is that when you're talking about expenses and budgets, it's about establishing how you're happy to live. It's not like some people say, that's just surviving. No, it's not surviving. I don't just survive here. I live. I live happily. I live happily in the sense that I know that there can be nice food made and presented. I know that no matter where I've lived, there's always a good selection of food from your local market, from your supermarket, and often from people who knock at the door trying to sell, or should I say, drive past the gate. The thing to remember though is one of the biggest things will always be, in terms of your expenses, will be where you live. There's no doubt that that will take a fair one, maybe 1/3 of what you're expecting to pay, depending on what is your expectation of living. But if you're going to compare apples with apples, there's no comparison to living on an old age pension in England and an old age pension in Australia or New Zealand, or maybe even in America on Social Security. Because here you can. And it's not BS, it's true. But if you want to be able to fly home to America every year, if you want to be able to fly home to the UK every year, or Australia and New Zealand, then of course you're going to have to save your money. You may be able to do it even on a pension, but you have to remember that it's a one-off. For those that brag about how much they've got to live, 5,000, 10,000 a month, great. Let them be the biggest, the best, and the boldest. But for most people, even for them, the ones who've got their feet on the ground, the ones that don't do blogs, they're happy to chug along, living a good life here in the Philippines. Don't be put off by all this misinformation about cost of living. Sure, things have gone up. Every day they talk about the price of fuel going up, about the price of fuel coming down, about the price of it staying the same. All these things are important, but they don't affect most people's lives. You know, you can go in a jeepney for a whole year and find that it's gone up 2 pesos on a trip. Why? Because the cost of fuel's gone up. They don't go and hike at 20 pesos extra. They just add a few pesos to cover the costs. If they did, then they'd have no customers, and then what would they do? Everything works on a macro or a micro level here. So everybody is trying to do their best to hopefully have a good life on a minimal amount of money. You have to remember that a person in a good job here is making maybe $400 a month on working in maybe a call center here in Manila or in other parts of the country. But the average person in the countryside is maybe on 2/3 of that, and they have a good life. Sure, there's maybe a daughter working or a son working that helps with the costs, but generally speaking, if you've got 20,000 pesos a month, 25,000, you're not paying any rent, then of course you will get by. Will you have a good life? I think you will. It's about a matter of this. If you had to compare life living on a pension back home, I wouldn't even think about that, because that's a negative way of thinking. You have to have the courage to do what I've done and many others do, and that's make your home the Philippines. And yes, you can live on an old age pension. And yes, some can live on $500, $600 per month. But I tend to choose a bigger figure, only in as much that I like to think that I can save some money too. If you're on maybe 2,000 American dollars, great. If you're on 2,000 New Zealand dollars, great. Or Australian, great. Because you will have a good life. And it's up to your partner to help with trying to make sure that you enjoy good food, good surroundings, and therefore a chance to have a good life. So it's not a breakdown, but it's just giving you a genuine idea about what it costs. After all, a jeepney, 20, 30 pesos for an average trip. An average trip is where you're living to town. Well, how far is that? Maybe 3, 4 Ks, maybe 5 Ks, maybe 10. It's always about the same. There's a minimum fee of around 15 pesos. If you're on a tricycle, double it, because they've got to do a lot more work than a jeepney driver. But that's the whole point. You know, I can travel from here to Melbourne, to Manila. It's an hour and a half, roughly, in heavy traffic, and it costs 106 pesos to get myself to the outskirts. Good location in Manila from Baliwag. And running around Manila, you can do it so cheaply on the rapid rail. You can get from one side to the other in minutes. You can go from one end to the other in maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. And you get to see a little bit of what's down below you as it whizzes past up on the rail line. But that's life, you know. It's all about having a good life here and having reasonable expectations. After all, what do you dream about when you're back home and you have nothing and you have that pittance? That's all it is. It's just barely enough to live on. But here, you have a good life. Think about it, guys. Bye now.